What's going on, guys? Back at you with another video, and today I have a very important announcement regarding the Sony A7Siii. And apparently we have some spec sheet leaked for the sensor being utilized in the A7Siii. Now, disclaimer, we don't know if this is true or not, but we saw something similar with a ZV-1. We saw a particular similar leak. We were wondering if it was true, and it happened that it was 100% true, everything that we covered with that spec sheet that we actually leaked before. Now, this one talks about part number and some pretty interesting claims right here. So I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to touch on some of the points. I'm going to list it right here so you can actually watch it. And also, I'm going to list the link in the description so you can read it, whenever you have time. But it talks about this part number, the IMX312AQK. Now it says version 1.0, diagonal 43mm type 2.7 CMOS image sensor with square pixel for color cameras. Basically, it's talking about the utilization of this particular sensor. Now the description says a bunch of stuff right here about the size, what I mentioned before, but there is a particular part that I want to touch up with you guys. This sensor incorporates a maximum 60 dB BGA circuit and a 16-bit AD converter. Period. Now, 14-bit digital output makes it possible to read out the signal of 12.24 million effective pixels at high speed of 43.2 frames per second in still picture mode. Now, this is the part that I want to talk about. In addition, quad Bayer output makes it possible to read out the signal of 48.97 million effective pixels. Now, parenthesis, disable on WW271448. Now, this particular code belongs to the registration of the A7Siii in Asia. Now, why would they actually do this? Why would they actually want to remove that feature? Well, the first thing is that this camera is going to be a video-centric camera. So they are going to decide not to put, the 48 megapixel in a camera like the A7Siii, right? Everyone is expecting this camera to be a video-centric camera. But the other thing could be that this sensor may be used in newer cameras coming up. Remember, the A7 IV is the camera that is now to be announced at least. And this could also be the sensor being utilized for the A7 IV. Now imagine an A7 IV with 48 megapixel in still mode. That could be actually incredible. So somehow, I don't understand this part very well, but apparently this sensor can be a 12 megapixel sensor when it works in video mode, and it can convert up to a 48 megapixel sensor when it's actually working in still mode. So remember, Sony actually mentioned that the whole thing has been completely redesigned from the ground up. Everything is new about the A7Siii. So the sensor being one of those things, potentially, yes, this sensor can operate as 12 megapixel in video mode and maybe 48 megapixels when actually switching to still mode. That could be actually a game changing on sensor manufacturing. Now, I don't know how this works. I don't make sensors, so I'm just reading and making some conclusions right here. Now, there are some features right here listed, and it talks about, yes, of course, being a 35mm full frame size CMOS sensor. Talks about the input clock frequency, but I want to talk about this particular one. Various high dynamic range functions. Now, all the cameras have dynamic range functions. You have the auto dynamic range, and you have the high dynamic range, the low, and all that stuff. But potentially, this talks about or gives us an indication of the dynamic range capabilities of this camera. So I'm assuming that probably we're going to have a great dynamic range in this camera, better than what we have right now with all the Sony cameras, which is kind of like okay, but not the best. So we would have to wait and see, guys. And the other piece of information that it's right here, it says built-in 10-bit, 12-bit, 14-bit, 16-bit AD converters. Now, we also talked in the prior video that the Sony A7Siii may potentially do 4K video raw up to 16-bit. This could actually be a confirmation that that is going to be a fact for sure. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So if this is true, the A7Siii could actually be a camera that we never have seen before, and potentially Sony may decide to enable some of the features in still mode. Maybe now this camera is going to have some, some great capabilities when it comes to still mode, or it can simply mean that this camera is going to be just a video-centric camera like we all expect it to be, and maybe this sensor is going to be reutilized in an upcoming camera with those 48 megapixels capabilities. So drop your comments down below. Let me know what you understand by these claims right here. Would like to hear your opinion. And as always, guys, subscribe to the channel for more content like this one. And until then, see you later.